higher education startups in Uzbekistan. And I think this is might be the last session of the Global Entrepreneurship Week this year. So we look at the content of this session. First, we talk a little bit about we give an overview of the higher education landscape in Uzbekistan. How many universities are there? The number of students? How many? Let's say the age distribution and other insights. Later, we look into what to consider when you want to involve or to start a higher education institution. Either here we see it either in Uzbekistan or in general it will apply to any country. And we will also look into the effect of the pandemic, the COVID-19, on the higher education startups. And also here you could take it for startups in general. We will talk a little bit about the methodology of the study, how the research was done, how data was collected and analyzed, displaying the findings. We will discuss a little bit the perspectives of the say the interviewees, and lastly, we will result into some implications for researchers, for you as the attendees or the readers of the research, and also for some managerial insights. And it will be the conclusion of our session. So first, we look into it's an overview of the landscape or higher education landscape. Uzbekistan is the most populous country of Central Asia, and the population I think is 33.3 in average million inhabitants. Half of the population is under 15 years old, approximately 28.8%, which is if we translate it from our higher education perspective, more people are planning to apply to universities and to join them in the near future. Life expectancy is quite okay. We can say 72 approximately years old. GDP is 56 or billion US dollars. It is average, we can say. And sorry, we have 85 national higher education institutions operating in Uzbekistan and 8 branches of foreign universities which operate in partnership with public institutions. And 50% of the Uzbek higher education institutions are unfortunately centralized in Tashkent. Unfortunately for now, but fortunately if we look at it from an investor perspective, because there is a whole other like 90% of the country that could be invested into. So when you want to start a university, or you want to start not just a university, let's say higher education or an educational platform or so, what do you consider or what do you look at? So usually there is a micro level and meso level and macro level. In this study, we will look into the micro level, the details of the process roughly, and the macro level, which is the managerial or the analysis that we will see, types of analysis that we can see later. So at a micro level, we look at, we decide, should we start a physical or a virtual operating platform, or maybe a hybrid. A hybrid is both physical and virtual platform. One should look or should secure the funding, which is the first thing actually. If you don't have funds, if you don't have investors who believe in your project, in your business plan, you probably will not you will end up not going for the idea. You will set up, or you need to set up, a mission, vision, and you need to have values for your, if you can say in our example, higher education institution. What is the mission and the vision and values? What's the difference between them? The mission is what the business or your business will be, or your startup will be doing right now on that moment. Like what are the goals, or what they aspire to, or what are they doing? The vision is what the business projects, or how the business projects itself, sees itself to be doing in the future. For example, we look at, if we take a higher education institution, we say we plan to in the long term to reach most, or to to have the most number of students of enrollment, or to affect the educational lives of most Uzbek students. Even if they are not our students, they will be affected by our vision through the concept that we spread. And also the values are the foundation of the mission and the vision. So first they stem, or the mission and vision cannot stand or cannot be there without the values and the ethical conduct and all this. So also we look into the structure of the educational programs. What kind of, let's say you're starting, either if you're starting online, what kind of programs you're gonna offer. So you need to structure them, you need to know them, you need to study the market to know the demand for these programs and so on. If it's offline, it's the same thing. So it needs further or very deep preparing and research and study. We need also appropriate marketing channels, and this is personally to me is key, because I do a lot of research on social media and marketing channels, and it proves day by day. I think you also sense it in your daily lives. We all are on social media most of the time, and we check. So those on social media we find several marketing channels, and they keep the number will be increasing with time, if not soon. So choosing the appropriate marketing channel for your startup, especially when it's a higher education startup, is key. So you would target properly, and you will give your or present your content to the people who really understand it and react to it, not just receive it and be, without reaction. The target, it takes us also to the target audience, which if you appropriately use your marketing channels, as I said, you will hit the right target, and you will get, enrollments for your higher education platform or higher education institution, or both. You need also qualified tutors or lecturers, of course, because the lecturers are the ones who run basically the programs that you design. So what is it, if you design a very good program and a very effective, but then it will be not it won't be very well run, so it will also create, it will have a risk of failure. So this is also a very important key point. Maybe here we can add also the staff should be experienced. You should look into hiring experienced staff who can execute the strategy and the mission and the vision, as we mentioned in the beginning. A prompt communication system with students. This is the system or the platform that every higher education has. Either if it's online, there is always, you can see like on Coursera or other platforms, you can communicate effectively with the tutor. You can communicate with the team. If you have any question, it will be answered. So this is also for a higher education startup. This is key, because if your customer doesn't find an answer for their questions, they immediately go and see the competitors, and this is a loss for the especially for a startup. Lastly, we can see a location and atmosphere. This is it could be, also online and offline. If you look at it offline, a good location, a strategic location of a university or an institution, also the inside of it, when it's comfortable, when it's modern, up to date, it gives even the students more will, like, to study and mood to study, whereas if you see there are some institutions who are really provide programs that are, you can say, okay or good, but if they don't look much into the landscape and atmosphere, so you see most of they don't have like even the students are not much at the premises. So this is important. Also in the online context, if the startup is online, the atmosphere, so it will be the website design, how well it is optimized with the search engine optimization tools, how well or the user experience is designed, and the conversion rate, how high it is, the bounce rate, how low it is as well. So the appropriate use of online marketing tools and all of that plays a role, and in the micro, if you can say, level or technical parts of starting a higher education startup. So these were the micro level aspects. In general, it could be it's subject to adding up or to minusing maybe from them. The macro level, and I saw some students we have in our presentation today are joining, and these are some models that we already spoke about, or analysis that we spoke about in our sessions. Pastel analysis and SWOT analysis are very, or not, I wouldn't say very important, but a key, a must. building block of starting higher education, because you cannot start or navigate in an atmosphere that you do not know, in a market or in a country that you do not know, even if you are yourself from Uzbekistan, or your investors might be some of them from Uzbekistan, some of them from another country. So you need to understand the atmosphere of Uzbekistan. And what is better than the Pastel and the SWOT analysis for that? So the Pastel looks into, you can see here all the aspects that it covers. So roughly you need to understand the legal procedures of a higher education startup. Legal procedures, as I always say, if either online or offline or both. The environmental, so what is the situation in Uzbekistan? How does what are the environmental regulations, and how does my startup or my startup should obey to them or be aligned with them? And this also deeper in so like in the university management, there is the it has to be in alignment with the SDG goals. So there's also the technological aspect. So if it's online, how well, as I said, is designed the website, and how effective it is, how easy it is to navigate. Is an update means that your startup is updated with the technology, means that you will have more people that you are willing to enroll for your courses. University as well, in terms of their email, their database, their the medium or technological medium of communication with the students. So this is very important. Social as well. You need to understand the culture of Uzbekistan. How is it, like the organizational culture and the culture of the society itself. So when a person makes a decision to join or decides to join XYZ university, they have their calculations and their way of deciding. So it changes from country to another. This we all know. So for example, if we look in the Western countries, it might be that the people will look more, it will be more an individual decision. If we look into Eastern countries, or many countries, there is also the influence of the family. There is influence of peers, of friends. There is influence, like you will see later, of the word of mouth, and a new concept, which is the word of mouth. So these are also social factors to consider when you start up. So a higher education platform, economic. So you need to also understand who your target audience are, and where is the country that you start in your higher education platform there or institution. Are people able to pay for the fees? Are they even receptive to this structure of the fees? And also, is the country, what is the purchase power? And it's an whole economical analysis that says that your product that you're offering is in alignment with the Uzbek student. Political as well, this applies luckily in Uzbekistan. And when it comes to higher education institutions, we see that it is in a political side, it's a stable situation. But if we look at other countries, there are countries that they have unfortunately wars, and there are countries that are unstable politically. So if you want to have a higher education startup there, you want to study a little bit the politics and try to predict how it is going, where is it going towards, at least in 5 years. So you don't just make an investment and then after 5 years, like, the whole political system changes, or the regulations, like political ones, change, and it will be harder for you to manage your startup. So this is a bigger analysis. Pastel analysis is for the atmosphere that you navigate, and SWOT analysis is for your own startup. So you need to know what are the strengths of your startup. So if we take our university team, university strength could be, one of the strengths could be that it is the first entrepreneurial university in Uzbekistan, it is really innovative, and it has, think that you're operating on yourself in that area. If you guys remember, in 1996, Jeff Bezos started Amazon, and he started selling the books online, and he was the only one selling. And he himself, in his interviews, he says that he was so lucky to have 10 years without competition. So it helped him to grow Amazon to what it is now, because of no competition. So this is, in my opinion, is a blessing and a strength at the same time. And we have this sort of competitive advantage at Team University. So it's our main strength. Weaknesses, you might look into the weaknesses of university. What is it? Maybe because of the pandemic, it could be a weakness for all institutions, not only for Team University, in terms of the contact with the prospective students, and to the process of establishing even the startup itself might be slowed down, like we will see later in the research findings. Threats are always there for any startup and any established institution, because if you do not have competitors, then yeah, it is a blessing, but it doesn't last to forever. So competitors are the main threat, and opportunities are always there as well. So there are opportunities for diversification. There are opportunities for Team University to cover other regions. Why not other countries in Central Asia? So the limit, there are no limits for opportunities of growth. Maybe other diplomas with other institutions, not just London South Bank, so on and so forth. So it's, as I said, an endless sphere. Now we look a little bit from, we take it from opportunities that is a bit very positive to the effect, unfortunately, of the pandemic on the previous factors that I have mentioned, and or the factors that when you want to start a university you look at. So what did the COVID-19 situation, now we are, I think, 9 or 10 months already in that kind of the world is in lockdown somehow, you can say. So although some borders are open, but still it's never like before. The pandemic proved that physical locations for higher education institutions can sometimes be unnecessary. This is applies to, for example, we have now we teach online offline, but we also carry our courses on Microsoft Teams and similar platforms. Some universities have their own platforms they carry there, even the big universities. So if God forbids there is a lockdown, and there is another lockdown, let's say, and a serious one, the universities will care are from the businesses or higher education. Startups and institutions are among the businesses that shall continue operating even under a lockdown, which I think it's an opportunity rather than a threat. And virtual operating platforms, which became a must, and the pandemic made it harder to find investors because the investors would want to go for a startup over higher education. I believe it's one of the businesses that stays for long time, longer than the person's own life. So it is a lifetime investment, or like it stays for generations. However, to involve in it, the decision now for investors or for venture capitalists, financial groups, or any sort of investor to go for it, it gives them like a sense of doubt, because am I gonna get like the profitability back? Because this is the essence also of their investment. Even if they are involved in higher education, every investment must have a return. So if the business wheel could move. The pandemic also widened the perspective of the mission and vision in higher education. So there is not only offline mission and vision, there is also online. The offline mission and vision, in my opinion, was okay and was also international. If you look at it, you start a higher education institution, and then you can, this is how it starts actually, then you become worldwide known. So it's not an issue. But with the online integration, becoming worldwide known is way faster. It saves like decades of work if it's done, of course, properly and professionally and mostly strategically. So it also advanced the pandemic, the quality, and increased the number of the higher education institutions and the educational programs. Because when people are in lockdown, the courses that they can study online all became offline, and some courses were only offline. So the number increased, they automatically startups or institutions of higher education were forced to create those programs and make them online if it's possible, as much as possible. I'm not talking about things that you have to practice, of course, in the lab and all, but still, like, the theory of that was taken online. Also, courses, not only the courses that were existing, new courses were created, and actual courses became more popular, like online marketing courses and management courses always are popular, in my opinion. But these, like, newly rise, like, skills that we saw the need to now. So there is the advanced also the way of delivery. It became more challenging for higher education institutions due to the pandemic. Why? Because there was always a lot of information out there. Students, like I always tell my students, you can find a lot of information that I teach you. You can find it on the web, and it's for free. But what is our job as a tutors is to give you from our experience how it's like, think of it as a chain that you find, like, or puzzle pieces that you find online, but and you read about it and you learn. But then when you have a conversation or debates or case studies with your tutor, you kind of advance your understanding. You combine yours with his, and then you make and you, like, you look into it in a whole different perspective, and the new information that you're going to learn is going to be more, you look at it from an upgraded perspective. So it certainly, the pandemic advanced how we deliver our classes in terms of skills. So it also made marketing channels vital to communicate, because everyone was at home, so everyone was online. The offline marketing basically died why during the pandemic. In my opinion, didn't die, but it is in the last stages. The marketing channels are, or online marketing channels now, are the way for it. It limited the travel to attend events or to organize events. So if you have a startup, you need to have a lot of events to show your offerings, to show what you're going to teach to the students, to show them how it's the atmosphere and all. However, if it's if it be prior to pandemic or post pandemic, you could organize as much events as you want. You bring the speakers, you bring the students, and everyone benefits from it. However, now it's very limited. Unfortunately, some speakers wouldn't come because they are themselves sick, or are afraid to be sick, and all the reluctance behind that. So tutors also, there's every university needs international lecturers, and in many cases they were not able to travel to the university, so they just teach online, or if they wait until it's possible to travel. So it also slows the startup, especially if it relies on some startups, like especially higher education, rely on lecturers from abroad to discuss, in order to enrich the local concept. So it's a little bit slowing down the process by not being able to travel. So the only prompt communication system also with the students is through the internet, was through the internet. Now at Team University, I see some of our students, they come and they have, the questions and answered within the COVID, measures, safety measures. However, it stays always not like the previously, how easy it was and how quick the offline communication or effective it was. So this was basically an overview of the opportunities and the if you said downsides of the pandemic on starting up a business. Now, the methodology of this study, which I took here at Team University as a case study, and I have conducted semi-structured interviews with some managers, and these managers were academics, marketing managers, and top level or top executive managers. So I chose three fields to be, to cover most of the perspective of the management in general of the student, of the university, sorry. So I have asked them questions during the interviews, and the interviews lasted, I think, around 45 minutes each, or 40 minutes, we say each. Text analysis was a method to analyze the content, and the findings are as follows. So we're going to see the findings from the top management. What did they say? The academics and the marketing, as I said. Top management believed that higher education, when I asked about the past, the present, and the future, their perspective of higher education, they said that it is, and it will always be a non-profit, and it's something that promotes self-development. So mainly in Uzbekistan and also in the whole world. Also, the top management believed that the word of mouth is a very strong tool for the startups or higher education startups in Uzbekistan. Why? Because if we remember, if you guys remember, I mentioned the social factor or the cultural factor in the pastel analysis. In Uzbekistan, there is the family plays also a role in the choice of the university. So they advise the student, and they have a strong effect on it. And this we have seen when times before, like in the offline mode, when parents come with their students, sometimes even the grandma, as it's a funny state answer I received from the management, like they tell them like this university and that one, and it relies mainly on the word of mouth. It's not related to the internet. It's just the reputation that of the university and the experience of the previous students. Now in the startup, you don't have the experience of previous students because they are the first. So word of mouth also is will stem from what content is delivered, or it has reached the Uzbek audience. So it is word of mouth is important. Also, the management believed in that the students appreciate the atmosphere of the university and the facilities. So they like to be always, as I mentioned, to study in a good atmosphere, in a encouraging one, with all the facilities that they need, so they can be at their peak of their productivity as students or learning experience. They also saw that the social media is part of the startup strategy that builds excitement and appeal. So they said that they always look at social media as a tool to build excitement and to appeal to students. It depends on with what target audience. So our target audience is our young entrepreneurs, or people who are students who are interested to be future entrepreneurs. Why not from now to start? So since you targeted this segment of students, so social media, it will work on that, on appealing to them, and showing them or exciting them about what's the programs or the offerings. And however, they were a little bit cautious about the fake news that social media could spread. This is common. I think it will always be there until some regulations on social media, it upgrades with the time and comes out. So fake news, not only for startup, for other also institutions, and it needs here the solution. My opinion is a good PR that can work on fixing that. Students might follow. Also, they believe that an institution, just because it's a dream to study there, like there was an example in the discussion of Harvard University, and Harvard is the first university in the whole world that has in numbers of followers on, especially on Instagram, and they have 5 point something million. And maybe those who follow Harvard are not the students of Harvard themselves. Maybe there are people who wanted to join Harvard, so they want to keep their feed. They want to see Harvard, and all, as like in social media, there is this concept of following some role model of leadership of thought. So this is kind of a Harvard, perspective, or our management's perspective of that, to be precise. When I spoke about the pandemic, or we discussed the pandemic, they said that it increased the stress, increased the uncertainty when you manage a startup process, which is I understand that, and I think it's totally true, because how stressful you navigate or you manage something that you don't know, or an institution that you don't know what will happen next in the country or in the whole world, like how the situation will be. But then you have to make decisions based on that, because you always have students that are gonna have their classes, and then they need to enroll, and it's a pretty stressful and uncertain setting to navigate. It also made investors, as mentioned also earlier, they emphasized it, that investors are reluctant, and it creates also the problems of funding for any higher education startup if the investor is reluctant. And also it made them scared. This is the result, reluctant, because they're scared for not getting an investment back or so. Online, also they mentioned that online teaching existed before pandemic, when we discussed this point. So it was always there, but then now it became a must to be incorporated into the business model of any higher education startup. Needless to say, if the startup is online itself, it will be an online mode of teaching. But if it's an offline, like our university, it's a mixed mode. You can say it's hybrid business model. It's already adopted by the university. It will just, in my opinion, become more, more creative, depending on how the technology develops further. This was the top management opinion. Now, the academics or the academic perspective, and I have discussed that with our module leader, and we spoke about his opinion about the pandemic and how was it affecting the startup process of the university. He said that as well, that it slowed down the process of establishing the startup, higher education startup itself, because simply because some people who are like involved in the process got sick or they couldn't, so naturally the process was slowed down. Also they couldn't communicate effectively. So this is one of the, or many, these are many of the slowdowns, if we can call them like that. He also said that in the midst of the slowdowns, the internet or technology helped us as teams also, when we teach our students, when we talk about our strategy as a team, all this back and forth information that we need to exchange offline was preferable. And it's for me also it's preferable because you can communicate with your colleague and you can take as much time as you want and you see the person physically, so it is good. But then it also, if not the online or the internet technology, like the meeting, like now I'm talking to you through Zoom, and it helped us to manage teams or efficiently and promptly, and have as I now we don't measure yet because it's the first semester, but so far in our measurement we could say it gives an effective, very high percentage of effectiveness in terms of module delivery, or several modules delivery. Also, he stated that the student engagement is high, and it takes the lead, and they take the lead themselves through the word of mouth, which is good. Like our students themselves in our startup, they speak about their experience. Most of the time, they're very content and they're happy, they're proud. So they affect their peers with that, and they talk to them, and it is good for the startup itself to have good reputation and the trustworthiness, and it's proven like by previous students, so others can join easily in the Uzbek context, and I think also in the global context. We spoke about the future aspirations or the future perspective from an academic side. So you mentioned that 10 years from now, the word of mouth for our startup will be enough and not much marketing will be needed. Here, not much marketing does not mean that there is no marketing. Of course, marketing is vital. It will be there, but think of it as a perspective was that the institution will be well known, well reputable, and trustworthy in the Uzbek context, that it wouldn't need to market itself much already. We also spoke about the data and the strategic or decisions of the university, and we agreed that the offline data and research are key for strategic decisions. So we also spoke about the social media, said that it was key to establish the image, and the vision of our startup. And this is also in alignment with what I mentioned earlier, that once you in a pandemic, you have no way but the internet to show the vision of your startup. So it worked up very well for a team university, and it's day by day, luckily, uh, instilling this vision and image in the minds of the subscribers or the Uzbek population. And social media also help to provide information to interested parties or to target audience. However, the academics believe that sometimes it doesn't target appropriately. So there is a content, and everyone can see it on social media. So not everyone is, of course, a university student. Not everyone understands. So maybe it will be an effort. This is downside. Maybe it is an effort in vain if you don't target your appropriate audience. And the last point of the discussion was that the social media data wasn't very reliable so far until now in terms of data, because also of the proper targeting. Some people might give you feedback on your posts on social media, but those people are not involved in higher education. Think of it like you're not a student. Say you're an engineer and you're already like 5-6 years working, and you just saw a post about it of XYZ university, and then you commented. But then, yeah, your comment might have been somehow from your perspective, yeah, okay, but then for the university itself, it's not, you are not the target audience, so the comment itself, as stated here, is not very reliable in terms of meaning or sense. That was the academic perspective, and now the marketing, or the last perspective, is the marketing department perspective. And I spoke to our head of marketing, and she confirmed in our conversation and insisted that the social media plays a key role in spreading the mission or vision of team. It endorses, if you notice, the same statement is coming repeatedly from the marketing, from the academia, and from the management. The pandemic left no choice but to market online for higher education institutions and also startups and all kinds of businesses. We can generalize that. The more platforms or channels that are used, the more reach and feedback is received. So you target, of course, appropriately target the platforms that are read by your target audience, and the more they interact with you and they give you feedback. And you can see I think most of you see the social media of our Instagram, for example, page. You see a lot of user generated content, which is content by our students. I find it has become very vital for every businesses or startup success. You can see every, not only team university, but established businesses and not established ones, startups, name it, you name it, any type of business relies a lot on user generated content, which displays the content, happiness, the sometimes it will be negative, but the feedback from a user, this in this case when it's negative, it a little bit harms the reputation. But we talk, I think better to stick with the positive one in this case. So because from our side, or in our case, fortunately, the user-generated content that we have is very unique and it's very exciting, and it becomes itself, this user-generated content experience of our students is a role model for other students who want to join a university or go for marketing or business degrees. So this is what we call a form of word of mouth. So we're moving now from the word of mouth that is ruling the Uzbek culture, and it will still rule the Uzbek culture and every culture, in my opinion, to the word of mouth. So now we have two words of mouth. It's kind of, they should be, in my opinion, in alignment, because if there is a dispute between both, there is always a theory in psychology that the word of mouth, the offline one, will win, because the person online you don't know and you don't trust, you trust more the person that you know and you speak to. So however, I believe this will be subject to change also. We will see with the change of the internet and the advancement and the passing of the time, of course. And another point that we spoke about is that Uzbekistan startups are quickly adopting, as I mentioned, to the word of mouth, because there is a lot of influencers. Influencers speak about startups, make about universities, about anything and everything basically on the internet that needs to be marketed, that needs to be displayed. So the influencers are opinion leaders, especially for the youth. So, and they influence them hugely, to a huge extent. We spend average of 2 hours on our social media daily, and we receive opinions from people who we subscribe and follow. So if they speak to us about a startup or any type of they give us any type of word of mouth about a product or certain business, it will affect us. So and also the platforms as well. There's a lot of increased number of, this is generally because in Uzbekistan, so far I do not know that if there is a, I think there is not, but I don't know if there is an online teaching platform. However, when I discuss with my students, they aspire to create their own online platforms, which is a very good thing. But in like, if you look at Coursera, at all these platforms, there is a lot of them on the web. So they are also adopting to the word of mouth. Say if I want personally to take a course, say photography course, and online, I will just look at the reviews of it. I will look at the content, of course, of the course, but then I will check the reviews, people who have already taken the course, what did they say about it? And I would trust personally that review, the most or the majority of those reviews, then a review of someone that would tell me, for example, that's not very involved in photography and has taken the course and said that it's not that effective. If of course, the e-word of mouth was more technical. So basically, to me, there is not much difference. It depends. The decision goes based on the situation itself. So this also about the e-word of mouth. And we spoke that, or we concluded that it is a must to combine an online and offline presence nowadays for startups and for any business as well. Even businesses who are offline were forced to become online during the pandemic, as you all know. Sharing updates on social media encourages students to share their opinion and sparks debate online. So they always give you, as I said, feedback, and there's sometimes debates, and then the startup itself, the person who's admin comes and solves the debate. So it also boosts the mission and the vision of the startup or university in our case, and etc. So if we want to sum up this study or the findings, what are the findings of the study? We have, again, micro level findings and macro level findings. So for the micro level findings, the pandemic slowed down. It was confirmed that it has slowed down the offline process of establishing a startup, but it speeded up the online one because there is more people at home and more people subscribing to those the news online than people who know about the news or what's happening offline. The integration of an online offline is necessary for any startup. So any entrepreneurs or future entrepreneurs that are watching this presentation, they must think of an online offline business model or hybrid business model. Social media is a tool in this business model to build reputation and communicate the offerings better than the offline now, although it's still needed. And students have become a key of content creation for startups. In case of higher education, we say students. In general, we say that customers for any business are key to create content that is reliable, because other customers will believe them. And at the macro level, the findings is that the strategic management perspective must change, in my opinion, because the rise of the free online sources or learning sources. So now the universities basically offer programs, of course, and they are accredited and they have the certificate and all. As I said, there is a lot of alternatives that give free information online, and sometimes more detailed, to be honest. So universities now, like, the strategic management should be more critical, or more critical of its approach in designing programs and adding value to what is already online available. It should look into that, what is available online, and see how can I adapt to that and package my product appropriately or deliver my product appropriately. The pandemic upgraded the standards for the management, because especially the skill of navigating in uncertainty was not enhanced, but was the only skill that they should sit and always in meetings and think about. That was a skill of the year, if we can call it. And the word of mouth is dominating the Uzbek higher education settings for now, and the word of mouth must be aligned with it. But in future, as I said, upcoming very very soon years, coming years, we will see, I predict a difference, so they will be same importance. These were the findings. So these are some implications to wrap up our session. The implications of this study for the researchers, for the managers, or for the readers, or the attendees of this session. For researchers, the pandemic has opened for us opportunities, that has shown us opportunities and challenges for higher education startups. But then we have to research more each opportunity and each challenge and see what it results. So we need to conduct more studies about that. COVID, I think it opened also for every spectrum of science. It has opened the eyes of the researchers into to new research gaps that need to be further investigated, which is a great thing in my opinion. And the pandemic for researchers is an opportunity to research further on online startups also, because these are the new offline startups are there, and there is already an established or a significant amount of research, so you can build upon. We also need to build our literature when it comes to online startups and investigate them further. For managers, the strategic management is going towards a hybrid model. It is obvious, or now it is operating as a hybrid model. So online online should be online and offline integration should be further considered or given more time when it comes to decision making. For the attendees or the readers, the higher education startup is challenging. Obviously, during a pandemic, it's not easy to start a higher education institution. However, the costs are reduced when opting for an online option. So it's not just an higher education startup, let's say a startup. So costs are reduced hugely, like we say, slashed when you go for online. And I always urge and encourage my students to go for these online platforms. And I would love to see in the future some of our students, our team university students who have built platforms for Uzbek nation and even for the world, to learn from them, to benefit from them, and it will be coming or stemming from our university. So this will be very good for the country itself. So with that being said, I thank you for your attention, for your time, and please, if you have any questions, let me know, and I will be here to answer.
Yes, I've got a question, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
Well, talking about the organizational structure of startup, especially marketing, managing, and academic aspects, right? So could you please name or make a list of priorities which we should pay more while starting our startup?
Jahangir, I stopped at could you please make a list? Could you please repeat the question because my internet may be bad or so.
Okay. Could you please make a list of priorities of those three aspects so that we know what we need to pay more attention at during the development process of the startup or already establishing the startup?
You told me the list is marketing.
Marketing, academic, and managing. The three aspects you mentioned yourself.
Okay. So, in my opinion, of course, the management or the top management always comes first. Why? Because the top management takes the lead and approves or disapproves or any business move. So you always put the top management at the lead. However, they themselves, in their mindset, in my opinion, they should take the marketing in consideration and they should invest in that. Then it comes, of course, the academic. If you market for a product, think of yourself marketing for a product, but that product is not that good. So it goes hand in hand. But all of them, if I put them, they're number one. But say management, marketing, and academia because it has
Okay,
been this.
management, marketing, academic. Thank you.
Welcome. Any other questions, guys?
Well, there are a few in the chat.
Few in the chat. Yeah, let me look at them. Hello, Jan. They're glad to participate. Hello, Dilara. Jan, please distribute your presentation via email. Of course, I will do so, and I can even share it here. So I don't see much questions, guys, but of course, I will put my email in the presentation that I will send to you. If you have further questions, we can always discuss. So for that, if you allow me, I will just give the word or the pass it to Victoria. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Djihanne. It was very timely. Let's say that your presentation is very timely, and hope we will use your recommendations. You know, I'm sure we are going to use the recommendation in further development of the university strategies.
Okay. My pleasure. So I already shared the content for you guys. You can take download it from here.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. It was really informational.